My first annual review at Deloitte, it was devastating. I was on the verge of being fired before I even really started. I was an entry-level consultant working out of a windowless room in a Chicago suburb, buried in spreadsheets, running numbers for a project I frankly could not care less about, and I didn't understand. This was not the life I had expected of a glamorous consultant. And honestly, I was terrible at it. But sitting in that room, I realized something that changed my entire trajectory of my career at Deloitte. Most ambitious people operate under the illusion of a meritocracy. Put your head down, do the work, and the work is going to speak for itself. That's a half-truth, right? You have to speak for the work, because if nobody knows who you are, your work is invisible. You're going to watch people who are less technically talented than you get promoted, simply because they know the right partners, they know the right people, and those people are watching them. The biggest threat to your career is not your lack of technical skills, it's your anonymity. If you don't get to know the decision makers, you're going to be replaced by the next person who can do the job and be seen. Once I understood that, everything changed. Within a few years, I went from verge of being fired to becoming the youngest partner ever elected at Deloitte at the time. And it had nothing to do with just getting better at spreadsheets. It had everything to do with a single decision that I was going to build relationships with the most important and powerful people in my industry before I had a title or a reputation or any reason for any of them to take my call. Now, most people think you need to earn your right first, build credibility first, wait for the right moment and wait out your time. But I'm going to show you why that thinking will cost you years and what I did instead. So first, the research hack. Every relationship starts with research, not a LinkedIn scroll, but like real work that you have to do. The kind of work that tells the other person that I really see you. I understand what you're trying to build and I want to be a part of it. And once you've done that work, you ask yourself one question: how can I help this person get what they want? Because I realized early in my career that when you put someone's goals before your own and you work hard to achieve those goals and help them succeed, they become your champion, those individuals. And it's even better if those individuals are people in power, in influence inside of the organization. And that's how you build a lifelong career stacked with the kind of relationships that won't let you fail. Let me show you exactly how this worked for me. Michael Hammer was the author of a book at the time called Re-Engineering the Corporation. The concept was genuinely about reshaping how business thought about themselves. And he was a very well-known individual in the world of business, in the world of serving large organizations. And everybody knew him and everybody knew his book. I wanted to be the person who brought his thinking into Deloitte, but more importantly, I wanted to build a relationship with him so he would bring Deloitte into his relationships. I started reading every case study, everything that he's ever written, anything that he's ever published. I studied the companies that had implemented his ideas, the ones that had succeeded, and the ones that he talked about why they didn't succeed. I showed up and sat in the front row of any conference that I could find that he was speaking at. Over time, he started to recognize me. I would always go up and compliment the work that he had, etc., and I would build a small bit of a connection. By the way, today, you can even do this in social media. You can show up and be at the front row of a person's social media feed, commenting on the things that they do. Over time, though, we built a relationship, an authentic relationship. He would see me, he would comment on me, and that sort of thing. And that relationship turned into a major conference that I built with Michael Hammer. What I did is I recognized that what Michael needed is he needed butts in seats for his conferences. He would throw conferences and he would charge people, X thousands of dollars to come. What I said that I would do is I would bring our clients, I would bring people that we knew at Deloitte into his conferences. I call that currency. As a result, that made me somebody that became more valuable than just a passive relationship with him. My ability to bring our clients into his conferences, this became major. It became major for him and it became major for us. By bringing the world's most respected business thinker, Mike, into our doorstep, I helped position Deloitte at the forefront of the re-engineering movement. This ended up being hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Michael started to credit us for knowing what we were doing around re-engineering because we had fed him the currency of all of these people into his conference. The publicity, the profits, etc., all of it was absolutely staggering. And so what happened to the guy in that windowless room out in the suburbs of Chicago? He wasn't fired. My bosses stopped trying to force me to crunch numbers. Instead, they created a brand new job description for me. They actually handed me, when I was a kid, $150,000 of an expense and just told me to do exactly what I did well so that I begin to build those relationships on behalf of our firm. All of this started with a simple idea: research. Who are the most important people that could radically advance Deloitte in the world? That was Michael Hammer. And then researching what I could do to both build an authentic connection and relationship with him, but also what I could do to be of service to Mike, right? I want you to take this formula into your world. 3 simple steps, but most people skip all 3 of these. This is what I call the RRR formula. Step 1, research. Once you've identified the individuals that you need to get to know, before you reach out to anyone, do the real work. Who are they? What do they care about? What's the problem they're trying to solve right now? How can you be of service to their vision, right, that they're working toward and that nobody else fully sees yet? You have to understand their world before you try to enter it. And when you do, you're entering it with generosity. Here's what I do specifically. I create a 1-page synopsis on that person. I look at their interviews, their talks, the causes they support, and I'm looking for 2 things. Their greatest passion, right? Because if I can serve their passion, and their biggest pain point, if I can alleviate that pain. If you can speak to what keeps them up at night, you completely bypass the small talk. And that's why me in that front row was able to show up and deepen that relationship. Because when you reference something real, something personal, in a conversation, something that shows that you actually paid attention and you know who they are, the entire dynamic shifts. You're no longer just a stranger. You're somebody who sees them, and that's so rare. Step 2, respect. When you do reach out, show them that you've done the work. You don't have to conceal this. Be concise. Their time is limited, but bring something. Bring an insight, a connection, an idea that's actually relevant to what they're trying to do and what they're going through. You're paying for their time with your preparation. It proves that you aren't just looking for a favor. You're there to be a partner. The goal is to give more than you take, way more than you take, every single time. Step 3, the request. Once you've done the steps 1 and 2, genuinely, not transactionally, you've begun to earn the right to ask for what you need at some point. And now it won't feel like a pitch. It's not a transaction. You'll feel like you're aligning for something with them. You're not just angling for something from them, right? Because the point is you're not. You've grown to authentically want to be of service to them. You've already given. And people are wired to give back when they generally receive something from you, and through that, they've made a real connection. That's how relationships work. You need to build these before you need it. Because if you wait until you're desperate, till you're in a transaction mode, right? Every interaction will be tainted in that direction. And remember, doors don't just open for titles. They open for value. Most people show up and they wing it. Don't wing it. They talk about themselves, talk about others. They pitch and hope something sticks. No, you've been thoughtful and you've been generous. That's why people get ignored. But when you walk in, you won't be ignored. You'll have done the work, knowing what somebody cares about, what they're struggling with, what they're building. You're already 99% ahead of everybody else who's maybe in that room. But now the real question is, how do you get in front of them in the first place? Because preparation only works if you're actually in the room, right? And getting into that room, especially with someone who has no reason to meet you, that's where most people give up. They assume that they have to cold call. Listen, I don't ever cold call. There's an old advertisement from decades ago that really captures why cold calling feels like absolute torture. It pictures a corporate executive staring right at you, and he says, I don't know who you are. I don't know your company. I don't know your reputation. Now, what is it you wanted to sell me? That guy is Mr. Killjoy. And when you call someone cold, that's exactly how they look at you. Whether they're saying it or not is not the point. You have zero credibility. And without credibility, no one is going to buy what you're selling, especially your ideas. Early in my life, it was incredibly difficult to get past Mr. Killjoy. You had to dig through trade magazines to find even just a sliver of common ground. But today, you have absolutely no excuse. You have Google, you have Claude. Hell, you have AI that could actually proactively create an agent figuring out how to crack the code of the most important relationships in your life. With one prompt, you can instantly find out where they went to school, what boards they sit on, where are their passions, what are their interests. You can map out their entire world and find a mutual interest or a mutual connection before you ever pick up the phone. And you can, more importantly, find out what you can do for them to make them successful. And the best part is you get all of that in 1 minute, as opposed to hours and days that it used to take to research in the past. But what else do you want? All that data is useless if you don't know how to leverage it when you finally reach out. So I built a system that turns every cold call into a warm one. First, let me talk to you about overcoming the gatekeeper. And I'm going to give you a reality check. If you're aiming high enough, you aren't going to just pick up the phone and hear a CEO say hello. You're going to hit a gatekeeper. This is where most people fail, and they treat executive assistants like obstacles that they're trying to get around. That's a big mistake. These individuals are far from annoyances. They're actually enablers. What you really want to do is recognize that an assistant is not an obstacle. Their entire job is to protect their boss from people that waste it like yours, but their job is to help their boss find value if you can help create it with them. If you treat a gatekeeper, an assistant, with an impatience or an arrogance, your message goes straight to the trash. But if you treat them with the exact same deference and respect that you would show the executive, but more importantly, if you treat them like a co-creator, somebody that you're going to work with to figure out how you can be of service, they become your greatest ally. You don't hack your way past them, you earn your way in, through, and with them. But just recognize that when that gatekeeper finally opens the door and puts you through to the boss, the clock starts, right? You have mere seconds to prove that you belong on that phone. I'll give you a real example. Years ago, a friend of mine, Jeff, had this really cool idea that he wanted to pitch to Sony. And I had met Howard Stringer, the CEO of Sony, actually at piano bars in Davos, singing alongside of him, but we weren't really close. I, of course, reached out to Howard to see if I could get Jeff into Sony to have a conversation. But unfortunately, I didn't get a response back. What I did is a little bit more research. I realized that Sony's major advertising agency was a group called Young and Rubicam. I did know really well one of the partners there. So I reached out to that partner and I suggested that I had a cool idea that really could help Sony, and maybe he could benefit by making the introduction into Sony. The partner at Young and Rubicam didn't know Howard well, but he did know the person who ran digital strategies really well. So he sent a message to that person, right? And he copied me and he said, hey, I think there's something here that you could benefit from. Maybe you should take a call with Keith. Once again, I didn't receive an immediate response. Now, I got a little sneaky. Back in those days, people actually had desk phones, at their desks. After hours, when I knew somebody else wouldn't be picking up the phone, I called that number that my friend had given me, and I was able to get 15 seconds quickly with the person, but he got it. Like, he took that 15 seconds and I was able to turn that into an actual meeting one-on-one. With all of this said, during that 15-second phone call, I secured the face-to-face meeting, just 15 seconds. Now, and I did it by applying the rules that I use every single time that I need to warm a cold call today. Let me give you those rules. Rule number 1, draft off of a reference. To immediately establish credibility and overcome a stranger's skepticism, mention a familiar person or a familiar institution or something that feels familiar, like a mutual contact. The point is that creates implicit trust. I opened the call by immediately, of course, mentioning John, the person at Young and Rubicon. And I mentioned the person that I wanted to connect them with, Jeff, who had this really cool idea. Rule number 2, state your value. You have very little time to keep someone on the phone or to grab somebody's attention in some form of an electronic communication. So your pitch must be so focused entirely on solving their problem. I had done my homework and I knew that when I called this individual at Young and Rubicon, I was offering him something that he could offer Sony. And then when I called the person at Sony, I was offering them something because I knew that they were launching new products and that these new products needed a new distribution channel. So I pitched this new technology as a perfect partnership to help him sell, his new product release that he was doing. I told him this technology lived on fountain beverage lids, right? Which is what it did. And that there were actually 20 billion customers he could potentially reach through this new cool medium. Rule number 3, talk very little, but try to say a lot. You've got to impart a sense of urgency, but make it easy, right? Without dominating the conversation or launching into some long monologue. Too often you lose people. I see this all the time. You lose people by just going on and on and on. I confidently started the conversation, this 15 seconds, by saying, hey, I'm gonna be in New York next week. Perhaps we can get together. I have a distribution channel that is gonna make your upcoming launch crazy successful. So while offering to make room in my schedule whenever it was most convenient for Sergey, I also very quickly offered the big promise that I wanted to give him, right? I didn't go on and on and on about the details. I didn't brag about my background or the features, etc. I made everything that I needed in the most condensed, simple way to make sure that they got it right at the very beginning. Rule number 4, offer a compromise. Look, I was going for the big meeting, right? I was going for the big deal, but I was also capable of being able to fall back on something that was a smaller commitment. When I got the guy in that 15 minutes, I talked that I could really create something significant, but I also mentioned that I have access to a large number of individuals, a great network. I had praised him because I had said how much my friend was a great admirer of his, so I laid the groundwork in that way. But I made it clear that even if he didn't want to go for the big deal, having a relationship with me could be valuable. So a very small meeting of 15 minutes next time I was in New York, that was actually worth it. So I created something that was an easy fallback. Now I know what some of you might be thinking, lots of excuses here. Keith, I couldn't just call somebody. People don't have phones in their desks anymore. What if they ignore me? What if they think I'm out of line? There's lots of those excuses, and I get it. I still feel that resistance myself every time I try to introduce myself to someone new and create the value that would be meaningful to them. But that fear doesn't go away. You just learn how to manage it. You just have to recognize that if you follow these tips, this is your best chance of success. And that's the way I manage it, right? It's simple. I weigh 2 fears against each other, right? The fear of being embarrassed potentially or getting a no versus the fear that I won't achieve my goals, that I won't be the kind of success that I want to have in my life. And I push through. And for me, the fear of failure, that one wins every time. My dad taught me this years ago with a very simple story I like to tell about a big wheel. Let's talk about this in terms of the genius of audacity. So when I was a kid, we were driving through our neighborhood and my dad spotted a broken down plastic toy. It was a thing you rode called a big wheel, and it was sitting in someone's trash. He pulled over and with a lot of confidence, he walked up to a complete stranger's door without hesitation, asking if he could have that big wheel for his son. First of all, I was embarrassed. I was hiding in the back of the car for fear that one of my friends would come by and see us having to look through people's trash for something that I needed. But the woman, she wasn't offended. She didn't shame my father. She was absolutely delighted. She said, of course you can take it. For my dad, he fixed it up and he actually gave it to me for Christmas. And it was a really cool Christmas present. We build up these scenarios in our head, the rejection, the awkward silence, the judgment, the fear, the shame, right? And we convince ourselves that we're imposing on people, projecting our own insecurities onto them. But the reality is, human beings are wired to be helpful. When you ask somebody for their time, their advice, or even a a broken big wheel from their trash, you're actually giving them an opportunity to be generous. My dad didn't just get a free big wheel for me for Christmas. He let that woman feel good about helping a neighbor. I'm sure she was thinking for weeks after, I suspect, about how that man and that little kid in the backseat of the car felt as a result of her generosity. But even knowing that, right, you still have to be the one. You have to be the one that walks up that driveway. My dad taught me that, but I had to learn how to do it myself. You have to be willing to sometimes, push through the fear of looking foolish. That's the audacity that it takes to build a real supportive network with other people. Because the choice that you're making isn't between success and failure. Everybody fails. The choice is between choosing risk and striving for greatness, or risking nothing and being certain of mediocrity. Samuel Beckett said it the best: fail, fail again, and fail better. People with a low tolerance for risk, whose behavior is guided by fear, have a low propensity for success. They're not going to succeed. The people who rise aren't the ones with the best resumes or the smoothest pitches. They're the ones who pick up the phone when everyone else is still drafting the perfect, email in their head. So get comfortable. Get comfortable with hearing no. Get comfortable with pushing through your own crazy head. Even rejection is a step forward. It means you're in the game, and you can't win the game that you refuse to play. Every relationship I built, from Michael Hammer to the CEO of Sony to the mentors who changed my life, and I really mean changed my life, they all started the same way. I did the work before I made the ask. I found a way to add value before I asked anything from anyone else. And I had the audacity to pick up the phone when everything inside of me said that I shouldn't or felt shame. I promise you, you do not need a title to build these kind of relationships. You don't need permission. You need preparation, you need generosity, and you need guts to go first. And remember, this isn't a one-time play. That people with the most powerful networks, with the greatest doors of opportunities open to them, they didn't build them in a weekend. They built them over years of consistently showing up for other people. One introduction at a time, one follow-up at a time, one act of generosity at a time. The compound effect of that consistency is what separates people who know a lot of names from people who have a lot of real relationships that actually change the world and change our lives. So start this week. Pick one person you admire but have a weak or even no relationship with. Reach out to them. Research them first, right? Find a way to be useful to them. And the worst that they can say is no. And if they say no, that's their loss. But getting the meeting is only half the battle. Once you're in the room, you have to know how to hold the floor and communicate with the kind of authority that makes people lean in. And that authority is born through your confidence that you can be helpful. In my 20 years plus of coaching executive teams at Fortune 100 companies and some of the most powerful unicorns in the world, I've seen brilliant people absolutely lose in the room in the first 30 seconds because they don't know how to command attention because they've lost their own confidence even before they show up. So I made a video on that exact thing. It's how to speak like the top 1%. You should watch that video next.